After Yamori and Nazna decide to fall for each other, the vampires take them to find out how they feel about each other and give them advice on how to improve their romance. They both then go to Tokyo to observe the couples at night, then open up to each other more than they could before, and finally Nazna drinks Yamori's blood again. Next night Yamori meets Mehiro's girlfriend, Kiku, who smells vampires from Yamori, so he tells her his goal of becoming a vampire, and realizes she's a vampire too. Though she tells Yamori not to tell it to Mejiro yet, as she would tell him this later herself, but Yamori forces her as Mejiro might accept her still. Mejiro appears. Suddenly Kiku tells him the truth that she was a vampire this whole time and starts leaving, but Mejiro says he accepts her as a vampire, but it was Kiku's manipulation trick to make Mejiro fall for her. Nazna knows Kiku too, and says she's a mysterious vampire whom even other vampires can't predict. Next night Mejiro decides to become a vampire through Kiku and asks Yamori about the details of becoming one, so Yamori finds out that Kiku never bit Mehiro's neck, even though vampires do it to people they like, so calls Akiyama and Hatsuka for advice as they both were male vampires. They go to a sauna, where Hatsuka says he has only turned 3 people into vampires, while Kiku is the opposite and has turned around 50 people into vampires, but tells Yamori not to tell it to Mejiro yet. Akiyama gives some love advice to Mejiro, and they start leaving the sauna. Suddenly Anko, who was sitting in the cashier's place, gives some feet fetish fan service for free, as she's after Akiyama. She knows that Akiyama has turned into a vampire recently. Suddenly she attacks him and makes him wear glasses which he used to wear as a human, and asks who turned him into a vampire. Suddenly Sari arrives and saves him. Hatsuka figures out that Anko gave Akiyama his glasses as objects that belong to vampires when they were humans weaken them up, like the ring for the teacher vampire from before, and tells Anko to put the bag in the fries as she's alone against 3 vampires. Anko doesn't fight them and lets them go, though she knows about Nazna and Kiku, and had some personal grudge against Kiku. Akiyama drinks Yamori's blood to heal up. Then they go to Nazna's apartment where Hatsuka reveals that vampires keep their human lives secret to not let others find out about precious objects that belong to them when they were humans. Vampires slowly lose their human memories too, so Hatsuka asks Nazna if she remembers her human memories to get rid of any precious object before Anko finds it, but Nazna couldn't remember. They leave, so Nazna tells Yamori that she does have memories of falling in love with someone as a human, but she doesn't remember who, so Yamori decides to investigate her past to keep her safe from Anko. Akiyama was worried that he might forget his human memories which he spent with Sari, but Sari says she'll still remember, and breaks his human glasses. Hirata, Midori, Sari and Hatsuka then start going to find their precious items from human lives, while Yamori finds out that he's getting groomed, as Nazna is around 40 years old. They find a hospital card from around 30 years ago, so go to check it out to find some clues. Suddenly find Cobra there who is working as a nurse. She looks at the card, then gives Yamori and Nazna hospital clothes so they don't get caught for trespassing, and tells them about room number 307, which is off limits, as patients used to see a ghost there, but tells them not to go in there either. Yamori checks online about the rumors and realizes that it's just Cobra herself whom people thought was a ghost, as she went through the wall. Yamori realizes that Cobra has some past connections with Nazna as she talks about her in a caring way unlike other vampires do. Suddenly she takes him to her room to talk to him as he's Nazna's offspring, but Yamori asks what's going on. Nazna sees a patient and thinks he's a ghost, and accidentally goes inside room 307, where she sees a picture of her as a nurse with Cobra as a patient. She shows it to Cobra, so Cobra takes them to room 307 and gives Nazna the blood from when Cobra was a human, as vampires can sense the thoughts and feelings of a person by drinking their blood. Nazna drinks some of that blood, and gets the memories where Cobra was hospitalized, while her nurse was Haru Nanakusa, who used to take care of her. Cobra leaves the hospital and meets her friends who had made new friends when she was hospitalized, making her feel left out, and she faints again after overhearing their conversation against her. She gets hospitalized again where she tells Haru about her friends, so Haru makes her realize that her friends are red flag, and gives her neuron activation. She ends up ending her friendship with her friends, then meets Haru on the rooftop and starts telling her things she likes and dislikes, and ends up confessing her love to Haru. Though Haru was a vampire, and she bit Cobra to turn her into her offspring vampire to give her freedom from human life. They both start spending nights together, while Cobra also gets hired in the hospital to get blood to drink, as the director of the hospital is also a vampire. Though after some time Haru gets pregnant by a human, and leaves after giving birth to half-human half-vampire, Nazna, and tells Cobra to take care of her. Cobra plans to kill Nazna, but changes her mind after seeing the resemblance. Cobra saved some of her human blood before turning into vampire, and drinks some drops from time to time to not let her human memory disappear. Nazna doesn't remember Cobra taking care of her, because when Cobra found her, her mental age was the same as a toddler, as vampires age differently. They tell Cobra about Anko using precious human items against vampires, and later Anko arrives at room 307, but everything there was already gone. Cobra thanks Nazna and Yamori for warning her or she would have been dead by now, then tells Nazna that after Haru gave birth to her, she died by refusing to drink any human blood as she only loved her husband, while her husband informed Cobra about Haru's death and died shortly after. Nazna doesn't give a fuck, and takes Yamori to a place where she first found out there are tons of humans living in this world, as she finds that place precious. Later they go with Midori to find her precious human life item, so she takes them to one of her offspring, Love Green, as Midori likes him because he's kind and listens to her yap. She's into nerd virgins, and met him at fans meetup of a game, where he fell in love with her and later got turned into a vampire by her. He investigated her past and knows stuff, so Midori lets him destroy her precious human life item. They force Love Green to tell them his item, so he ends up telling them that he made a haram manga about Midori once, to find out if he could get turned on by it or not, and later tried selling the copies, but none of them sold. After turning into vampire he found them, and realized he could be the only one who made them, so that's how he knows about his precious human life item. They get burnt. Yamori and Nazna then talk about self-discovery, where you touch grass and realize home is the best place for you after all, so Nazna takes Yamori to her school where she used to go 10 years ago, for self-discovery. There was a night class going on, where Hirata is the teacher who finds out Nazna is half human half vampire, and after finding out about self-discovery, she brings them to her class where Nazna gets nervous while introducing herself, but Yamori does it easily. Later Yamori finds out about a person named Mejiro, who had a crush on Nazna and almost became her offspring, so Nazna decides to tell Yamori about her. 10 years ago she met Mejiro Mejiro at the literature club on her first day, where Nazna fell asleep and woke up to Mejiro almost kissing her, so finds out Mejiro is into scissors. Both become friends, while Mejiro starts writing a diary about Nazna and rejects a guy, then tells Nazna that her parents fight all the time thinking her father is cheating on her mother, so she mostly stays there at the literature club to avoid their fights. Nazna decides to act like detectives to investigate if her father is actually cheating or not, so they go to Mejiro's father's room to check his stuff, but Mejiro finds out that her father was keeping stuff related to her in his PC and drawer. Then Mejiro takes her to the restaurant in front of her father's office. Suddenly her father walks into the restaurant too, and after messaging someone, he leaves in a taxi, but Nazna uses her fast speed to follow him. Suddenly someone hits her to make her lose track of Mejiro's father. She gets scratches but they heal after a little time, so Nazna ends up telling Mejiro that she's a vampire, and tells her the condition of falling in love to become one. Mejiro goes back home in morning and meets Nazna at night again, and says that her father didn't come back home last night, while her mother didn't care about her staying out the whole night. Nazna finds a solution, and tells her to leave her human life and become a vampire, so Mejiro accepts and lets Nazna bite her. She doesn't turn into a vampire yet and experiences flight, then goes back home. Suddenly her parents apologize for stuff they've done, while her father leaves her cheating relationship to stay with his family. They celebrate her 18th birthday too, so Mejiro reminds him of a lighter she once gave him as a birthday gift, so he decides to finally use it as he didn't wanted it to get lost before. Suddenly he starts feeling weak when he holds the lighter and hits Mejiro, as he was also a vampire, while the lighter was his precious human life item. The vampire that hit Nazna earlier was the one who bit him, making him realize the bad choices he made for falling in love with a vampire over his family, so he tried fixing his relationship with his family again, but the lighter makes him lose control. He thinks it's all just a dream and sucks all the blood out of Mejiro's mother that kills her, then tries drinking Mejiro's blood too, but she uses the fire of the lighter to burn him down. At morning Nazna appears and sees the dead bodies, while Mejiro refuses to be a vampire anymore, and starts wearing her father's glasses. Mejiro is Anko. Nazna figures it out too, while Anko tells her that the rent of her house went pretty low for the new people because of the killing that happened there, then tells Yamori that if he interrupts her later when she's killing Nazna, she'll kill him too. Nazna tells other vampires the backstory of Anko, and tells them that she'll be the one who will deal with her herself. Halloween was near, which was the day where Anko's family died, while Anko thinks of killing herself, but stops. On Halloween night, a guy, Kimura, tries hitting on a girl, but Anko saves her and tells Kimura his personal information and digital footprint, and blackmails him to work for her, or she'll tell his family what he was doing. Midori and Hatsuka give Halloween costumes to Yamori and Asai, then they find Seri Akiyama and Kabra, then meet Nazna and Hirata, while Nazna goes to drink more beer and Hirata goes to seduce men as a slutty teacher. Suddenly Anko does a drive-by on her and leaves, but Hirata gets up after a little time, while people around think it was just for a movie. Yamori gets suspicious. Suddenly Anko drive-by on Seri next and disappears, so Seri and Akiyama decide to kill Anko even if killing humans is against the rule. They split up, and Akiyama finds Anko, so both fight, and Anko ends up putting him in a stuffed bin and escapes. Then she goes to all the places she went with Nazna 10 years ago, and finally goes to the school where she meets Nazna in the literature club, the place where they first met. Anko says she captured a vampire once and did some experiments on it to find the weak spots, then shoots Nazna in her eye for fatal damage, and tells her to stop grooming Yamori. Nazna refuses, so Anko says she'll go kill Yamori, and falls down on a tree for lesser fall damage. She mails Yamori to come to school, and continues hitting Nazna in her vital spots, but Nazna figures out she won't actually kill Yamori as she was threatening her a bit too much. Nazna gets serious and throws school stuff at her, then they go to the gym hall where she beats Anko up, and says she doesn't want to kill her after all. Suddenly Yamori appears, so Anko tries killing him with a gun, but Yamori reveals that the mail she sent didn't ask him to come to school, but instead it was a parting message, as Anko is planning to die by Nazna's hands. Her goal is to kill all vampires, so if the police find her dead body and research her past, they'll find out about vampires and their existence would become public, which would make people stop going out at night to avoid vampires, which would starve the vampires till death in 10 years. She wanted to die to Nazna to get the footage as proof of vampires' existence, as she can't just take a vampire's corpse to the media to show they exist, as people would think she's a retard. She leaves as she's tired of getting her revenge, while Yamori figures out that Nazna doesn't want to kill Anko, as she still likes her as a friend. Anko goes back to the literature club and tries killing herself. Suddenly Yamori appears and stops her, but she accidentally shoots him. Suddenly Yamori stands up with the wound still there, but loses consciousness. He later wakes up in the hospital where Kabra treated him, then Anko meets him and says he hasn't turned into a vampire as his pulse is still racing, so the standing part is still a mystery. Yamori then realizes that she was trying to protect him this whole time by trying to keep him away from the vampires, then wishes her happy birthday, so she realizes that it's been 10 years since someone last wished her that. She goes to the roof and meets Nazna, and says she wishes she had managed to fall in love with her 10 years ago. Later the fireworks stuff happen, then Anko gives Kimura his costume back, and agrees to spend the night with him when he asks. Nazna thanks Yamori for solving the situation without getting anyone killed, and kisses him again. His bullet wound heals up, but Kabra doesn't know why, so he calls Anko to ask if she knows, and finds out she cut her hair short like before. She checks the bullet hole but finds it mysterious, as his pulse is still running, and makes a theory that he stood earlier out of his love emotions for Nazna, not because he's becoming a vampire. She gets in drunk state, so they bring her to Nazna's apartment where she hires Yamori for cuddling as Nazna's cuddling business, and sends Nazna to buy something for her to drink. The greed consumes Nazna and she leaves them alone, while Anko starts regretting that she spent a decade planning to kill vampires and wasted her 20s. Later Midori gets Nazna and Yamori to her maid cafe again, then all the vampires reunite and talk about old times. Then Yamori tells Nazna that he wants to find the vampire who turned Anko's father into a vampire, as he wants to hear her side to give some answer to Anko to relieve her of the sadness inside her. Finally, Nazna takes Yamori away, and sucks his blood again in private.